So it's grade 11. I'm in an art class. There's giant windows, bright room, big communal desks, and it's one of those introduction to everything art classes. And we've got those plastic school chairs that are never comfortable. I've never been ever comfortable in any grade you've ever been in. Our teacher is she's got long, glowing blonde hair, like she glows from a distance, long skirts, big Huppie earrings, and eyeshadow, like picture the 80s, typical 80s, because it was the 80s. And she's fresh out of teacher's college. She spends most of the time not talking to anybody, just at her desk, except when she comes around giving advice to everybody. So this is, it's a general introduction to everything art class. So every week we do something different. We do sculpture, we do painting, we do like dot work, we do carving. So the teacher gives an example, and then she lets us go off on our own to do something. This week we're doing plaster of Paris carving. So we pour the plaster into a cup, we tear away the paper, and we carve something out of it. And the teacher's example is to make a face. So we do the face, and everybody goes away to their desk to do something. And I look at my form, and I don't see a face. I see spirals. So I start carving away my spirals, and it kind of looks like a tornado. So I'd go all out for this tornado. 45 minutes later, I look up, and there are no other tornadoes in the room. There is a sea of faces, just like the teacher's. And the teacher's going around the whole room the whole time giving advice and compliments to everybody, but she doesn't ever stop at me. I can hear her earrings go around, and now I know why she didn't talk to me, because like I am not doing what she told us to do. So my tornado, there's no going back. I only had one form. So I paint it black, the blackest tornado you've ever seen. And I put a solid base on it, and I mount that tornado on the base, and I put it in the cupboard with everybody else's faces and heads. And we come back the next week to pick up our sculptures. And I see all the sea of heads, but I don't see my tornado, because my tornado is on the counter in pieces. So I asked the teacher, like, what's going on? And she said it accidentally fell off the shelf. So I'm thinking, well, that's suspicious, because my tornado with the solid base was a hell of a lot more stable than all of those faces up there, because I'm going to be an engineer, and like it's pretty solid. But whatever. I take it home and I glue my tornado back together. Midterms comes around, and I look at my marks. And what was supposed to be my easy bird course, I am practically failing, which is not acceptable, especially to get into university. Like I'm getting, in my mind, failing, I'm getting a 70. It's not acceptable. So go around to the next project, and this time we're making things out of clay. And the teacher's example is to make cups and bowls and saucers and vessels of different kinds. And this time, before I get to work, I look up, because I got to bring those marks up. And everybody else is making cups and bowls and saucers and ashtrays, and so I get to work. And I make 2 bowls, but I stick them on top of each other. So the open ends are together, so you've got a vessel. And it kind of looks like a head, and I know she likes things that look like heads and faces, so I get to work on that. And I put a nose on it, and I lobotomize it, and I have like a lid that comes off, and I cut a top in it, so it's functional, so it holds stuff. It's like a coin jar. And I look up, and 45 minutes later, of course there are no heads in the room. There's a sea of bowls and ashtrays and cups, just like the teacher made. Again, no going back again. So 2 weeks later, when we take home our things out of the kiln, everybody takes home their monotone bowls and ashtrays, and I take home this peanut-shaped yellow head with a blue top and red inside, with the nose on the outside, and I don't care, because my marks are coming up, and I'm getting my 80s, so everything's good. End of grade 11, I go back to get my marks. And I've got my 80s and 90s, everything's good, except my lowest mark now is in English. And that's not acceptable, because to get in engineering school, you've got to have at least 80s and 90s to get in. On my way out of the school, an English teacher stops me, and he asks me, like, how's it going? He knows my marks. He knows that I'm doing the worst in English. And he pulls me aside, and he talks to me, and he tells me to think of writing in English like math, to think of it like a formula. Like there are certain pieces that have to go into any good writing, and you just have to get all those pieces in there, and you'll have good writing. And he also tells me to read more. And I don't think too much of it. I'm just like my face is on fire and my heart's pounding from attention being drawn to me, because it's like I want to be in the background all the time. I really don't talk to anybody through most of high school. So he goes down the hallway, and I out the front door as fast as I can. But I spend most of the summer reading, because I've got a driver's license now, and I drive my mom's big Buick to the library every weekend, and I read, and I don't think much of it. Come around to grade 12, and this is the first year where you can graduate high school in 4 years instead of 5. It's the first year with OACs, and it's chaos. A lot of us are taking classes that have never existed before. We can't figure out how we're supposed to graduate, these different requirements, but I'm discovering that I really love writing. That unlike math and science, where there's only one right answer to anything, with writing, there's so many ways to get the right answer. I can manipulate the formulas, I can rearrange things, I can break them apart and rebuild them and make them better and better. And all of these new skills that I'm learning, this vocabulary that I learned over the summer from reading so much, has really improved my writing skills, totally unintentionally. And my English marks are going way up, on par with my other marks, my math and science marks, and I've discovered this love for writing that I had no idea existed before. Now we're in the spring of last year, and I work for the city, and I'm at this conference. And I hate conferences because I hate small talk. So I'm going around, and I see a guy in a corner with a vendor booth. And nobody's talking to him. He's got these weird fiberglass things. If you go around the city of Toronto, there are these, between the bike lanes and the car lanes, there are these white posts about this tall. They're either white or yellow, and they're called bollards. You're supposed to be able to knock them over, and they're supposed to come back up. They don't fare so well in the city of Toronto. They get destroyed on a regular basis. But this guy has got some weird flat ones that I've never seen before with this rubber base on them. So I go over to talk to him, because nobody's talking to him. And he's really excited and really animated, and he's from Quebec, and he talks with a thick accent, with like his arms moving all over the place. And I'm afraid he's going to knock something over. But he's really excited for somebody to finally talk to him. So we get to talking about these bollards, and he shows me this video. And it's filmed in the backwoods of Quebec somewhere in winter. And it's got this little compact car, this white car, that it's just a video of this car just going faster and faster across the sheet of ice and knocking these bollards down, like faster and faster. And it's like, you'd think it was like a YouTube Dare video, but it's not. It's just a marketing video. And I agree, like whatever he's doing to these bollards would have destroyed everything we have in the city of Toronto. So we get to talking, and I'm managing the bollard contract for the city of Toronto, so he's excited to talk to me, and I'm excited to see something different, but I can't do anything for him right now, but I take his card and I promise that I'll see what I can do. So now we go to July of last summer, and my manager comes to me, and she gives me this project that nobody's been able to figure out for quite a while because nobody can figure out how to do it. The Bloor Viaduct, that giant bridge that goes over the Don Valley Parkway and over the Don River, is supposed to have bollards on it. And I look at her like, you're crazy. Like, of course nobody can do that. It's ridiculous. You don't go drilling random holes into a 100-year-old bridge. There's a waterproofing membrane. Nobody knows how thick the asphalt is. You cannot break that membrane. And she says, well, we have to do this. It's, counselor, we have to do this. And it's like, oh, all right, I think I know how we might be able to do it. Ground penetrating radar. And she looks at me because she's a planner. It's like, whatever. So I said, we can x-ray the bridge. We can x-ray the bridge and figure out how thick the asphalt is. And she says, okay, whatever, just figure it out, get it done. So I go away and I get the bridge deck x-rayed, and I phone up my friend in Quebec. And I ask him, can your bollards be installed in 2 inches instead of 4 inches of asphalt? And excitedly, because he's always excited, he says yes. And he sends me references to places where he's done it. So I get the bridge decks x-rayed, I get all the results, I figure out exactly where we can install these 190 bollards across the bridge. And it's now October, after months of legal agreements and contracts and negotiations back and forth, because it's a really important bridge and you cannot screw this up. I'm out there on a Friday night in October with the sun setting, with a safety vest and a can of spray paint, and the x-ray results, the engineering drawings, and I'm out there spray painting exactly where these bollards are going to be installed and where he's going to drill into the bridge deck. And like, no pressure at all. The next morning, my friend from Quebec shows up, and in a minivan, literally a minivan, full of bollards in the back, with City of Toronto stickers on each one, but I'm certain that he pasted on himself and printed on his printer and put them on, and he starts drilling into the bridge deck exactly where I put the holes. He installs 190 bollards, no waterproofing gets touched. I don't really express to anybody exactly how much pressure I was under that weekend and that I didn't sleep at all, but great success. And it goes away and nobody notices. Everybody just notices that we've got bollards on the viaduct. No big deal. So what all of these experiences have taught me is that there's more than one way to look at projects in the world, and especially in engineering, that there's many ways to solve problems. And engineering is as much about following the rules as it is about being creative and figuring out ways to break the rules. And it's also something I try to install in co-op students, because I have 16 co-op students every year who I get to mentor and teach. And I think that in order to be a better teacher, I try to give every project at least a couple different explanations and a couple different ways to look at things. And I also try to explain to them what rules need to be followed and what don't. And I think that engineering, more than anything else, has taught me to ask better questions. Because a lot of people accept things the way they are and they don't know the right questions to ask. And having worked in so many different areas of engineering, I've usually done the job of, or some aspect of the job of the person who I'm asking to do work for me. And you get better results that way. And I found that looking at the world and problems in different ways can get you much better results and a much better world than doing things the same way that everybody else has always done it.